I mean, of course, I was joy. I was overjoyed. I was very happy. First thing I did is I called my mom, because my mother actually was the legal consultant on a movie. Wow. Yeah, she's a lawyer and she's an activist, and I felt like, you know, she knew the process.
And you have to call your mom.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you have to call your mom.
Yeah. And then what I start thinking about when it happened is about what we've been through. Not what's, you know, I did not look in the future. I looked back, actually, because I don't know if some of you know, we've been through a little bit of a hard time with the authorities when the film was released. And there was a lot of back and forth. It was a very anxious period because we were so close of having the film not released, like my previous film, The Attack, which I've done in 2012, which was banned, and I took it really, really hard.
And you were refused entry back to Lebanon at one point, weren't you?
Well, what happened is in September, last September, the actor who plays the Palestinian, Yasser, had won Best Actor in Venice Film Festival. So we were very happy with this news. And when we returned, September 10th, 2017, I was stopped at the airport. And, you know, it's a negative feeling. I don't want to elaborate too much on it because we passed that point. We were so happy what happened after that. But, you know, I was detained for 24 hours in a military tribunal because of my previous film that I've done in Israel, which created a legal mumbo-jumbo for me. It was a very, very difficult memories that I had. So, you know, some people try to also put a stop onto this film because of the content. And you know, there are certain sensitive points when you do films in the Middle East. It always create a polarized things. But then, you know, the military judge let go of me, citing, you know, statutes of limitation, because he believed that I violated the law in 2012, but a lot of time had passed since then. On my previous film, I'm talking. So there was a linkage between those two films. So, you know, look, this is the Middle East. You know, it's like, don't expect always to have, you know, you have to battle it. You have to, people fight to make their film.
And yet the flip is all that happens, and then this is the film that is officially selected to be put forward among all the films around the world that are put forward for the best foreign film, and then it becomes one of the 5 that actually get nominated.
Had I presented this film in 2016, I wouldn't be sitting talking to you today. It just happens that the new government that arrived on 2017, run by the Prime Minister, Saad Hariri, which is actually a guy that is terrific. He lobbied against members of the government in order to release that film. So, you know, Dominic, in Lebanon, there is still forces that fight censorship. That's what I want you to know. Don't think that, you know, 3 weeks ago, certain members of the same people who tried to stop that film, they tried to stop The Post, Steven Spielberg's film, and the Prime Minister actually interfered, and he says we cannot present the image of Lebanon. Lebanon is not like this. The Lebanese people are much more open and pluralistic, and we don't have anti-Semitism. So he actually won that battle. Next year, if he's still in power or not, that's a different story. It's funny that we're finding ourselves discussing the politics of the film and not the film, but in a way they're very.
But in a way they're so entwined. They're absolutely entwined. And I mean, totally. I think, you know, an audience sitting here in West LA watching this film, and I think one of the things, you know, you've had a long, long career in Hollywood. You lived almost 20 years in Hollywood, working in Hollywood. You know, there's a lot of conventions of this film that feel very much like a very Western film. It's a courtroom drama, ultimately.
I've always wanted to do a courtroom drama. I mean, it's just a genre that I absolutely love, and American cinema had so much perfected that style. You know, during the writing, at the very early stages of writing, I started pulling all these films, courtroom films in Beirut. It was between Beirut and Paris. Like I saw one of the greatest film of all time for me. Like such an amazing movie, really. Judgment at Nuremberg. I don't know if you've seen it. What a terrific film.
Did you watch The Verdict?
And I saw The Verdict 20 times. In fact, let me just tell you, the character of Wajdi Webb, the lawyer who's defending the Christian, I was very influenced by the character of Ed Kincannon, played in The Verdict by James Mason. Yeah. I wanted to show the character here that he's old-fashioned, theatrical, and he had a big staff. And at the same time, I wanted to show his daughter to be just have a little bit of an assistant who just coming out of law school, because in the verdict, Ed Kincannon and James Mason had a big staff, and Paul Newman just had one help to him, and they were always sitting in a tiny office. That was a very influential film. But, I mean, courtroom drama is something that... Probably one other reason I want to also do courtroom drama is because my family, from my mother's side, they're all lawyers and judges. I mean, my mom is a lawyer, and my 3 uncles, her brothers, are all judges. And one of them is in the Supreme Court. So, you know, the dinners in Beirut when I was growing up had always revolved around cases. My mom, she used to come and discuss with my dad, you know, this guy did an unjust thing and this thing did an... And she always had this thing about... She did not handle business law very well. She used to go always, my mother, for things that are more personal, you know, like a divorce gone nasty or somebody who ripped another guy.
Well, let's talk about that in the terms of the insult, because this film's origin came out of a situation very much like what we saw here happening to you.
I mean, that was the triggering incident, you know, just, Dominic, the way the film starts, the way you saw it, is a very similar incident that happened to me in Beirut. I was just like it was in the film. I was watering plants, one fell on a guy. He yelled, I yelled back. He insulted me, I insulted him more. Then I noticed he had a Palestinian accent, and I said, what is the best thing you can offend a Palestinian? You tell him Sharon should have wiped you all out. And I just nailed it. And he was very hurt. And then the co-screenwriter standing behind me, she says, you know, why don't you go down and apologize about it? Because what you just said is you just can't say it. So I went down and I apologized to the guy, and I remember he had yellow glasses. So that's why at the beginning of the film I chose Yasser to be yellow glasses. So you know, and then the whole problem was solved. It was solved on the spot. And then you start getting ideas. You say to yourself, what if my story, it starts at the problem where you saw it, but it does not get resolved. So I was very interested early on with the idea of your protagonist getting involved in something that start having a snowball effect. And they triggered an incident, and then suddenly halfway through the film, they can't control it anymore. It goes beyond them.